in accordance with the laws of the state of Addison.
This is Deobra Redden, a 30-year-old man facing battery charges in Las Vegas, Nevada. Redden was on probation for an unrelated charge when he got into this altercation with a Las Vegas police officer, a clerk, and a marshal. During the fight, he spat on an officer and was therefore arrested for battery. In court, Redden acted calm and collected. The judge showed a bit of sass during this particular statement.
Like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that, like, I should be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
I actually just, I looked at it.
When you lived it, I
I
suppose.
just looked at it, yeah.
Yeah. Shake that, but I think it's time that you get a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Addison.
When out of nowhere, Redden's body went flying through the air. Redden attacks. He flew over the podium and slammed Judge Mary Kay Holthus to the ground. He punched her, pulled her hair, and put his hands around her throat. Deputies dragged him off of her. But he didn't go down easy. Deputies and even random court members resorted to kicking and punching Redden to subdue him until backup could arrive. Judge Holthus was injured and had difficulty getting to her feet after the attack. Thankfully, she didn't have to be hospitalized. The next time he was in court, Redden was in a helmet and mittens. Interestingly enough, Judge Holthus refused to be taken off the case, instead insisting that she hand down Redden's sentence herself.
For purposes of the record, I want to make it clear that I am not changing or modifying the sentence I was in the process of imposing last week before I was interrupted by defendant actions. I am making my calendar page from that day an exhibit for the court.
Redden got 4 years for the battery charge. He'll get charged for the attack on a later date. This prisoner was forced into mittens. But how bad do things have to get for a judge to force someone to be duct taped into silence? This is Franklin Williams. He's fighting an appeal for robbery charges in Ohio. He was given 14 years for robbery in 2016, but he came back to court claiming that his attorney didn't explain the charges well enough. Williams did one thing in court: talk.
I just met this attorney the other day.
That's fine. So
And
here, yeah, so okay,
The judge had enough.
Mr. Williams, I'm the judge in the matter. Shut your mouth, and I'll tell you when you could talk. You got it? At this point, I'm going to hear from your lawyers, and that means zip it.
But you're not letting me tell
That
you
means
what's going on.
zip it right now.
You trying to?
Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't.
Finally, the judge gave Williams an ultimatum.
Mr. Williams, listen, listen to me. If we have to, I will gag you in 1 second. So listen to me. You will get a chance to talk. I'm gonna gag you in 1 second, so just listen to me.
It wasn't long before the judge followed through on his threat.
Mr. Williams, I want to make it real clear. If you spit on, attempt to bite, or injure any of my deputies,
none of that, man.
you're going to have a bad
I don't
day.
need none of that.
Oh, you
Put the
clear.
tape on me, man. We done with this shit. That's what it is.
That didn't stop Williams from talking, though.
Mr. Williams will have a chance to speak.
And I'll be monitoring everything I say.
Go ahead.
How can I say?
But once sentencing time came around, Williams calmed down.
Saying freedom of speech, no duct tape. Your Honor, I asked today, Your Honor, that I received the lightest sentence that you can give me.
Williams addressed the whole public when he said this.
I want the world to know I am not an animal. Contrary to what people may think, I am a man.
The judge later apologized for the tape, resigned from the case, and had a new judge appointed.
And no, you're not an animal, Mr. Williams. You're a human being. But the question the court has to determine is whether or not you've learned from those mistakes.
This new judge gave Williams a rare privilege. She let him kiss his mom goodbye before heading off to prison. In the next case, the convict didn't say one single word, but somehow he still wound up in a fight. This is Chance Macko, a 17-year-old charged with grand theft auto, robbery, failure to comply with officers' orders, and harassment with a bodily substance in Columbus, Ohio. On March 4th, 2016, Mako was living in a halfway house for juvie offenders when he went for a joyride in a stolen car. Police officers caught him speeding and they ended up in a high-speed chase. In court, violence broke out, but it wasn't the convict who attacked. It was an attorney. After the bailiff pushed Mako back down, Mako replied, "Don't put your hands on me." The bailiff tells him off for a second before suddenly putting Mako in a chokehold. He has his other hand wrapped around Mako's mouth. He then pushes Mako to the floor, out of his chair, and drags him across the courtroom. The bailiff agreed to resign from law enforcement due to his actions, and Mako's family will not press charges. Mako was sentenced to 6 years for these charges. Now, he was just a kid when he first arrived in court, but how does that compare to a career criminal who gets into a screaming match with a judge? This is Manson Bryant, who's facing charges for first-degree home invasion and kidnapping in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, Bryant was in court because he and 2 female accomplices were caught during a violent home invasion in 2018. The accomplices pled guilty, but Bryant took the case to court. This was his 4th time in front of this judge, and the judge wasn't going to go easy on him.
The last time before this time that I had him, I put him in prison for 4 years for a robbery. He acted out briefly on his way out of the courtroom, and I just let it go. Well, it was clear that the remorse that he was trying to portray was phony, and that he wasn't remorseful at all, and that if given the chance, if I let him loose on society, he's going to prey on other people.
This is the moment he learned his sentence.
Count 5, abduction, felony 3, 22 years.
After hearing that sentence, Bryant starts muttering to his attorney in disbelief. His attorney shushes him with his hand, however, even that didn't work, and suddenly, it sinks in.
Court determines that you have or will have the ability to pay restitution.
Courtroom, you racist. You racist as 22 years. You racist bitch. You ain't shit. James Sturgeon, Lisa Sturgeon told me about that fool.
Actually, you know what?
The judge hands down some swift consequences.
Remember when I said that you had some... Wait a minute. When I said that you had a certain amount of remorse, I was mistaken. The court determines maximum imprisonment. So it's 11 years on count 1 and 11 years on count 3.
Bryant was given 22 years for this crime, but after that outburst, the judge added 6 more, coming to a total of 28. Bryant became a screaming ball of rage, but one of his friends came to the rescue.
Manson, calm down, bro. Let me out the courtroom, man. Take him out. Hey, just take him out. Just take him out. Get out of here. Get out. Hey, take him out, please. Take him out, please. I love you, bro. I love you, man.
Off camera, Bryant's friend pleads with him to calm down, but it doesn't work.
So it's 28 years with credit for 231 days.
I don't want to hear it, man. Let me out. Let's go. Let me out.
Hold on.
I don't want to hear it. Let's go. Let me out. Let him go. Let me out. Let's take him out. Let me out, man. I swear to God, turn up in this bitch.
Does counsel waive the client's presence for the remainder of the advisements I have to give?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can take him.
Hey, thank you, Danny.
Our next case features a convict who did more than just yell at people. In fact, his behavior was so outrageous that he was forced into a terrifying mask. This is Bryce Rambo Rhodes, charged with 3 counts of murder in Louisville, Kentucky. Rhodes was a gangster rapper. His last song, Get Money and Murder, hit a little too close to home.
Get money and murder, get money and murder, get money and murder.
Was his song a prophecy? 2 years after its release, Rhodes saw Christopher Jones walking down the street and shot and killed him, mistakenly believing that Jones had a hit out on him. Weeks later, Rhodes committed 2 other murders. This is Jacory Taylor, the man who helped Rhodes kill the 2 brothers.
I was scared, so I'm like, what you mean? He said it. I want you to punch him in his chest, and if you hit him in his face, I'm gonna hit you. He had me punching him. He said, stop. Or something like that.
That's when Rhodes tied up the teenager, stabbed him, and forced Taylor to stab him as well. Days later, a pedestrian found the two bodies laying in a yard on a residential street. The detective on the scene said,
We also notify CSU. We also notify, the coroner notifies TIES.
Rhodes was found and arrested. He was held in prison to await his trial, but instead of keeping a low profile, Rhodes took the chance to commit even more crimes before trial even started.
Inmate threw urine through the crack of his door, striking Officer Briles in the head, neck, and left ear.
This man was like a caged animal, racking up multiple charges for assault and terroristic threats. In court, he was nothing but argumentative and contemptuous. He first blew a kiss to the victim's mother, then insulted the police.
What happens when their facts have been diluted, better yet fabricated? How can I receive a clean-cut trial when the Commonwealth has shown corruption and manipulation?
And his next accusation is even more insane.
I don't know if y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on or what y'all got going on, but I'm definitely gonna speak my mind. Are you some type of Or y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on? Which one is it? Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir.
Is that what you really are?
So after accusing his lawyer of having an affair with a jury member and of being a secret Triple K member, and after spitting on him, Rhodes finally faced some consequences. This man was forced into a spit mask. Not only that, the judge threatened to put him in a stun cuff, and even his own lawyer was fed up with him.
Nice cheap shot. You were a coward. Nice cheap. You were a coward.
Rhodes' judge quit. However, the judge made sure Rhodes wouldn't get away with this.
And fix the defendant's punishment for the murder of Maurice Gordon at life without the possibility of parole.
Rhodes was sentenced to life in prison and seemed completely unfazed. His intellectual disabilities and mental illnesses disqualified him from the death sentence. It's especially heartbreaking when a killer takes the life of a young person. But what about when the killer is a teenager themselves? This is Frank Delian Jr., a Houston native charged with a brutal homicide. This is Diamond Alvarez, a 16-year-old high school sophomore in Houston, Texas. On January 11th, 2022, she was walking her dog when tragedy struck. Alvarez went to the park to meet her boyfriend, Frank Delian Jr. She had recently found out that Frank had a secret second girlfriend and wanted to meet him at the park to break up with him. That's when Frank pulled out a gun and shot her. Police say DeLeon shot Alvarez 22 times, mostly in the back, when she was already on the ground. Frank pled guilty to the charges, and it looked like everything would be smooth sailing. That is, until the family started throwing punches. Just after giving her impact statement, Alvarez's mom snapped. She stormed to the front of the courtroom and confronted her daughter's killer, but deputies held her back. That's when Diamond's uncle jumped in and landed a sucker punch right in Frank's jaw. But his mom came in to save him. The two mothers got into a nasty fight, wrestling and punching until deputies pulled them apart. The uncle was handcuffed, and the judge forced everyone to take a break to cool their heads. This is what Alvarez's mom said about the fight.
It was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters.
The brawl led to some courtroom changes. No recording equipment was allowed in that courtroom for that moment on. DeLeon was sentenced to 45 years in prison. As for Diamond, her family still mourns her loss.
I just want peace. That's all I want.
This teenager's life was needlessly lost because of Frank's violent choice. But how does that one compare to the life of a father taken away by the choice of a complete stranger? This is Amanda Kossel, charged with operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol resulting in death in Michigan. On June 25, 2017, 25-year-old Amanda Kossel got into her SUV while drunk and collided with another vehicle, killing 31-year-old Jerome Zeiker and injuring his fiancée, Brittany Johnson. The couple had 5 children together. He had come to pick her up from work, and they were on their way home when Kossel collided with him.
Luckily, they was at grandma's house. Otherwise, it could have been all of us.
This is what the victim's mother said about Amanda.
I want her to stay out and help support my grandchildren because they don't have a father to take care of them. But then if she go to prison or jail, I'm taking care of her and the taxpayer. I don't want her to deliver a check or I want to mail it to her. I want her to hand it to them so she can see the faces that she destroyed.
In court, it wasn't Amanda that caused the scene. It was her mom. The victim's family was reading their impact statements when all of a sudden, from the back of the courtroom, someone started giggling.
Sister was speaking. That clown, and that's what I'm going to call him, a clown, was sitting there smiling and laughing. Yeah, you can go too, because if you don't know how to act, you can go to jail. So leave. Anybody that can sit there and laugh and smirk when somebody, take her, she's going in the back. She's going in the back. Anybody else want to go? You can go too. Not in courtroom 502, not today and not any other day. Ma'am, you are being taken into custody for criminal contempt. Your disruptive and disrespectful behavior disrupted today's proceedings, and you, ma'am, are going to the Wayne County Jail for 93 days for direct criminal contempt. Anybody else want to go? Try it.
Judge Kiana Lillard explains what happened.
Boyfriend or something, based upon what she said, who was removed from the courtroom for basically laughing at and mocking the family of the victim during the victim impact statement, is when I said that if anyone else didn't know how to behave, they could leave too. Ms. Coastal, I just decided to exit, but instead of just exiting quietly, she got up, stormed out, violently burst through the door, and began yelling in the hallway, further disrupting the proceedings.
The judge gave her 93 days in prison for contempt of court. The next day, Amanda's mother came back to apologize.
Is there something you'd like to say?
Yes, I deeply apologize for what I did. I was under a lot of stress. I'm going through some doctor's appointments today for my heart. It's just everything overwhelmed, and I deeply apologize for what I did in your court. I just needed to get out, and it's been very hard for me this year, and I know for the other family, and I'm so sorry for what I did, and I know it was wrong, and I apologize.
All right.
The judge accepted her apology, but she had one last thing to say to her.
What you have to understand is, as hard as this is for you to see your baby going to prison, imagine what that family feels like when their child's dead.
I understand that.
The judge dropped Amanda's mom's sentence from 93 days to 1. As for Amanda herself, this is the moment she learned her sentence.
There's a lot of things that you can do, and your life doesn't have to be over because of a poor choice. You just have to accept responsibility for it and find a way to make something positive out of a very negative situation. So it'll be the sentence of this court that you will serve 3 to 15 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
This couple was ripped apart by one senseless killing. Now in our next case, it's the girlfriend herself who kills. This is Taylor Schabusiness. In Wisconsin, she suffocated, decapitated, and dismembered her boyfriend, Shad Darian. On February 22nd, 2022, Shad's mother woke up to find her son's head hidden in a bucket in the basement of her house.
Hello? Hi, Tara. So, can you tell me what's going on? Are you positive my son's head is in a bucket, a round bucket in my basement? What makes you think that? Because I looked in the bucket. What did you see? Exactly what I told you. Okay. Where's the rest of the body at? No idea.
When police got there, they found not only the victim's severed head, but also various other parts in grocery sacks, duffel bags, and cardboard boxes.
If we could get some more units here sooner rather than later, that'd be appreciated. We've got quite a bit of blood down here. I want to clear this rest of this house. We've got 2 people in the house for sure.
The victim's mom knew her son and Schabusiness were, quote, sex partners. When the police arrived at Schabusiness's apartment, they made a chilling discovery.
Hey. Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here? Could possibly be blood.
They found Schabusiness's bloody prints in the snow. They had caught her red-handed, literally. Schabusiness's hands were still covered in her victim's blood, but even more damning was the evidence in her car. Inside the car, there was a crock-pot box that was, at that very moment, filled with human body parts. Therefore, this monster was, of course, arrested at the scene. During the interrogation, Schabusiness confessed to everything.
Yeah, true. What you guys do with them?
You put them around her neck.
Yeah. And then what were you doing while they were around their necks?
I strangled. I was strangling.
You were strangling.
I just played with them like that.
You said play with only.
Played with it.
Okay.
Like I put them up over the bed, and then stuff.
Sex with him.
Yes.
After having consensual sex with Therian, Shabiznes pulled out metal chains and strangled him. She then, quote, played with him and performed sexual acts with his corpse before cutting up his body and hiding him in various containers in the basement and in her car. In court, Shabiznes' behavior was, well, I'll let you decide.
That argument, the doctor could just simply describe everything, but the question is this going to be helpful to the jury?
That's right, this person started laughing as the judge described her brutality. And that's not the only time she laughed.
Asking like, do you wanna hang out with Shad? She was asking.
Now, if you thought that's all she had in her, think again. In the middle of the court, Shabiznes jumped up and lunged towards her attorney with her hands in the air. Before she made contact, deputies tackled her to the ground and forced her to sit against the wall until she calmed down. Critics say that she faked a psychotic break to get the insanity plea. Did it work?
At the time the crimes were committed, did the defendant have a mental disease or mental defect? Answer, no.
This is Taylor's face the moment she learned her sentence.
I'm satisfied that the evidence is sufficient to support the jury's verdict, and I'm going to adjudge the defendant guilty on count 1 of first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater, count 2 mutilating a corpse as a repeater, and count 3 third-degree sexual assault as a repeater.
Shabiznes got life without parole. Ironically, just 1 month before the crime, Shabiznes reposted a Facebook post about female against male domestic violence, calling out the double standard. Shabiznes completed her brutal crime in the privacy of a home basement. But how does that compare to a double homicide in plain view of dozens of onlookers? This is Andrew Worth. He's charged with 2 counts of homicide in Wisconsin. On December 6, 2009, off-duty cop Jennifer Lewick and her boyfriend Greg Peters were out dancing at a saloon. Suddenly, a stranger on the dance floor groped Lewick. It was Andrew Worth. Her boyfriend came to her defense, and Worth dragged him outside for a confrontation. Then gunshots rang out. This is what a witness said about that night.
She had yelled, call 911, he's got a gun, and then she was standing there for a few minutes and then collapsed, and nobody had even known that she was shot at that point.
He ran outside and saw Worth yelling and pointing a gun at Peters' head. Worth walked away, and Peters stumbled back into the saloon.
He said he was having a hard time breathing, and nobody knew that he had been shot in the side until they pulled up his shirt and actually saw the wound.
Peters was shot 3 times. One of those bullets struck a cell phone that was in his pocket. The second struck him in the chest, and the third in the neck. That third bullet was also the one that struck Lewick. Both Lewick and Peters passed away from their injuries. In court, Worth was an emotional wreck.
Each of these are separate Class A felonies, and they're separately punishable by life in prison.
Meanwhile, Jennifer Lewick's parents sat in the courtroom clutching her picture. It seemed like he felt guilty for what he did. But would a guilty man do this? It takes half a dozen deputies to overpower him. Thankfully, nobody was harmed. Worth was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the murders. There are many witnesses that night, and Worth was quickly caught and sentenced. But in our next case, though, there wasn't a single witness. The only thing the killer left behind was one tiny piece of evidence. This is Percy Phillips, who's facing murder charges in Louisville, Kentucky. On September 8, 1993, a man walked up to the counter of a local gas station with a can of beer. Brenda Whitfield, the attendant, opened that cash register and the killer shot her in the head and walked away with the contents of that register, $32. The killer wasn't caught on CCTV, and the case became a mystery for decades. Ultimately, it all came down to one tiny clue.
The bottle was set on the counter by the killer. The killer left his prints on the bottle. The prints belonged to Percy Phillips.
The killer bought a bottle of beer right before shooting the attendant. They had finally found him, Percy Phillips. Now in court, Phillips' lawyer had an eerie prophecy.
Mr. Phillips has shared that he doesn't know exactly what he'll do in certain situations in the courtroom. He thinks he just may explode.
Moments later, the lawyer's stark prediction came true. Phillips exploded.
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Black. What, man?
Officers rushed to grab him. What you can't hear in the recording is a third officer in the corner of that room shouting "Taser, taser," that signals to the first officer to back away from Phillips. Then Phillips is taken down. Phillips had to be removed from court by medical personnel. If you thought his actions made his guilt obvious, well, listen to this.
Come in. Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Proffitt. Thanks for joining us. At about 5:45 tonight, 15 minutes ago, the jury said they could not reach a unanimous verdict, so the judge sent them back to come to a possible verdict.
The defense say the fingerprint evidence was faulty, and the only thing connecting Phillips to the crime was chance. The jury was unable to decide, and the judge declared a mistrial.